All right, white boys. I guess I do have a little bit of a quickie for you today, and in the sense that I don't really feel like editing anything about it, so I'm just gonna do like Scott the Watts here and point at the closest surface I can find and use it as backdrop, sorry, for my insane ramblings. So, Dead Redemption 2, you read the title. What makes it a good Western? It's kind of a weird question, probably, for some of you who see it more like as a game rather than the storytelling genre that it's portraying. And, as a game, of course, I will be the first to say that it's every bit as deserving as, one of the greatest games of all time. I really love it. I love the story. I love the gameplay. I love the graphics. Everything about it is just, it clicks in my brain in a way that really does it. It scratches the itch in a way that very few other video games can. And I kind of wanted to elaborate a bit on what I think about as a genre, as a Western, what makes it so good because I don't think like this kind of movie or video game or like anything kind of story in general hasn't been particularly popular at least in the last 50 years. And the most exposition people will have seen about like the westerns is probably the Django movie. Outside of that, of course, Red Dead Redemption 1 and 2. But outside of that, not really much to speak of, and I think it's a shame. And I kind of wanted to elaborate, I suppose, on why, like the minutiae, the little details that Red Dead 2 accomplishes in being a good western, because of course there is going to be a lot of references to like the classics, the movies, the spaghetti western, but there is like a lot of deep cuts in the maybe interactions that there is a lot of interactions if you play the Red Dead 2 that you aren't really you kind of have to look them for. They're a bit obscure, and of course the reward for most would be the getting to know the characters more, obviously, and that alone would be like a huge thing in getting you more invested like in the game as a whole. But for the little western references, I think that kind of takes the game to the next level. And I'm a big fan of the Western genre, okay? I have read the Tex Wheelers, huge fan of Tex, very popular comic book series in Italy. I heard it's also huge in Finland, or at least it was when, the Westerns were in big vogue. Of course, when you speak of Tex and the comic book westerns, you can't speak without bringing up also Zagor, a great classic of Italian comic book literature back in the day. I've read tons of it because it's kind of the more adventurous side of the western, not necessarily about like gunslingers and shit like that. Sometimes it takes it a bit more goofy, which is something that I really enjoy. And you can speak of like goofy westerns or Zagor without bringing up his trusted friend Chico right here, which brings like the comic book comedy aspect to its natural conclusion, one would say. Really fun little thing to read. I really wish there was more. I'm pretty sure I haven't read like the whole series, but I've read enough, and when I'm gonna look things up like on the thrift stores and the fairs and other places that sell old comic books, it's really hard to come across the Chicos. But every time I do come across one, it's really a good time. Ken Parker, if you want something that is less like on the violent side or the comedic side, is very artsy, very well drawn, kind of goes more into the human aspect of what people were like in this very chaotic period. And that's neat. Ken Parker is a very soft character, something that like in comic books of the time, at least like in Italy, you really didn't see. Much appreciated and very grateful that in the middle of such a period you get to see something more like that. Now, La Storia del West, kind of more of a mishmash of different stories. I'm gonna be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of this series. I'm not really a fan of like one-offs. These are pretty much like individual stories with no interconnected characters or anything like that. And that's fine. That's like fine, but it's not really for me. I am more of someone who likes to get invested in the characters. And speaking of getting invested in characters, Il Piccolo Sceriffo, again, one of the more light-hearted versions of the spaghetti western comic book genre. Maybe a bit derivative, but I still like it for what it is. Very fun. And again, I know that like the western is kind of a genre that you have to fall through some tropes. It has to have certain things, and I get it, but it's not like the ingredients. It's about how you put them together. You know, like you can kind of make a tortilla out of 20 different, 20 different tortillas out of like the same three ingredients. And this is kind of an effective case of doing exactly that. Speaking of, Il Piccolo Ranger, which is okay, now that I look at them, I don't remember which one I like the most. One of them is like particularly funny in the sense that it's very like mean-spirited towards like the side characters. The protagonist is kind of a dick, like he's very young, he's very like impulsive and brash, which is it's to be expected. It's especially like when it's stuff that was written like many years ago, and times were tougher, and the parents were a bit stricter, and as a result, the children would also be a bit more, of that kind of behavior. And like it's really, I find it really funny because in one of like these two series, like one of them is wholesome and somewhat like normal and your classic action hero. In the other one, like the protagonist is kind of a dick, and I don't remember which is which, but it is what it is. Of course, Great Black. I really like the way black is spelled there. I don't know if like that was intentional or it's because in the late 50s getting an English dictionary wasn't easy, and people just kinda did whatever they wanted because like you weren't gonna get a lot of exposure to the English language, so who gives a shit if it's spelled incorrectly? But yes, I'm also a huge fan of this one. Now, would you consider Western something that happens like in the middle of the War of Independence? Because there isn't really like a genre that tells this specific time period, and I think it's close enough to what people would define as Western that like it fits in. Maybe some will disagree. I would totally understand that, but from my point of view. The atmosphere is like very similar, and the Black in particular is like such a funny hero in the sense that it's not like he's a very like stereotypical big brute, like a big dumb. No, he's not like stupid. Okay, like he's not stupid, but he's not like. Sometimes in these comic book stories, you will see the protagonist outsmart the baddie. Black is more of a just punch your way out of the solution, out of the problem, and get to the solution. And even if like this is an incredibly like earlier comic book compared to some that you will see here, I think it's like really funny how it still stands out to this day. The fact that it's so like anachronistic and silly, I guess it gives it of a lifeline. Yeah. Maschera Rossa, Coyote. I have no memory whatsoever about this one. I have no memory about this one. I vaguely remember that, like, of course, he's gonna wear like the little mask here, like as you would expect. But there really isn't like this one is very generic, very remarkable. I suppose the art is okay, but you know, in this genre, the art is all very samey, and there isn't really much that makes this one stand out. Very generic. Speaking of masks, you know, this one was Maschera Rossa, which means red mask. This one is Maschera Nera, which is black mask. And this one isn't particularly good either, but it's really fun because Max Bunker made it. And Max Bunker is most famous for Alan Ford and Satanic and some really weird fandom comic book stories. I don't remember the names, probably something like Kimberly, whatever. Uh, well, like, yeah, the author is kind of a freak. This was before like he could find his groove, and while the stories aren't really much of anything, it's super like wacky to see him like drawing this traditional style when most people will remember him for the more caricaturial Alan Ford and all of that. Geronimo, another one that I have like very vague memories about. Uh, I think, okay, actually, I don't remember if it is one or if it's another one, but like I remember reading one comic book of like a series that I couldn't really find anywhere pretty much, and like the guy was sort of like a anti-hero, and he would just kill people very casually, and he would have like some sort of vendetta against this group that like I don't remember if it killed his family or someone else, sorry, but it was like kind of like fucked in like a really funny way that you wouldn't see until like the 80s, 90s, where this kind of anti-hero trope would become more popular. And seeing it in such a context makes it really fun. I don't remember if it was this one or like another one thing gonna show up. This one, I literally didn't read it yet. I'm not gonna comment on anything. This one also, just got it on a thrift store. This one also I didn't buy. Sorry, I didn't read it, I just bought it. This one too. This one I don't. I genuinely don't know what's like. I don't know if this is like the just a different way to name one of the series I already mentioned, or if it's something else. I probably was very forgettable. If not, I would have remembered it. Same for this one. I should probably remember it because, like Zorro, you know, it's not. This isn't like literally the Zorro comic book that you probably think of. You know, the one where the guy is wearing a black mask. Like you literally see the guy wear a black mask here, and you know the the black outfit and whatnot. But like, I don't think he actually appears in that kind of capacity in the comic book itself, which is a bit weird. I don't exactly remember what the deal with that is. Anyway, this is the other comic book story that like I don't remember if the hero is here or if it's another comic book. These are very long, you know, like they're only like usually 98 pages, but as you can see, like there is a lot of words in each page, and of course, if someone is like reading books on the regular, they're gonna think I'm a bitch for like complaining that a comic book has a lot of words. But like in general, I do really like when people get friendly. So it's more of a matter of like having to verify information like about the stuff that I'm just bringing up. Jesus, La Valle della Morte. Did I already like bring up like a Jesus issue previously? I don't remember. Like some of these like just blend together in ways that aren't really, you know, they don't have anything that makes them stand out. If I read this one from start to finish, I would probably find something to say because I'm just like that. I do try to suppose look at the positives, but I really don't have the time right now. Now, I just talked about earlier about like, two comic books in which one of the protagonists is kind of a dick, and this is the one actually I was thinking about. Like not the other two. The other two are probably more semi, like between together. Like they all both have like the young, very young protagonist who is like the son of the sheriff or the son of someone important, and they kinda is inspired by their dad to kind of become also a good boy of the law. And this is, I think, this is the one that's actually the one I was thinking of, where there is a drunk and there is a fat guy. No, wait, that's another one that I don't think I even have in this big pile here. Yeah. Anyway, speaking of like comic books of the Western genre that stand out, Magic of Ento is definitely one of them, and also probably my favorite of the bunch. Super super like fun story. Usually it's I don't know if it's like the same artist every time, but usually it's super well drawn, and the story is like very dark with lots of supernatural elements, and some sort of continuity between the numbers, the issues, which something that isn't like too common in the Western comic books. I really really like this one, and sometimes like not necessarily just in westerns, but like they will get this trope of the white dude who is raised by the savages, and it's kind of made as a premise for like creating a white savior character, which honestly I don't even mind that much. Some people get really riled up about it, but I can see why like it can get really old and can be like very pedestrian and tacky, and I forgot what's the word I was going for. Probably, well, I don't know. I will find it soon, I guess. But yeah, in this one, it's like done really well because it's like you can really tell that the guy really respects like the culture he was raised in. Like he loses his memory in like a train accident or something. I don't remember. And the Indians take care of him, and he kind of becomes, adopts their culture, and it's really nice. Now, you don't really see like Japanese westerns every day, but when they do get like their own interpretation, it's very, it's very unique. I don't know if I should like show any of the pages here because, hey man, I just like you probably saw for a frame like a woman getting fucked, yes, but very unique art, very more mature theming, which is really cool. And of course, when you speak of like Japanese westerns, you can't not bring up Steel Ball Run. It's really like it's so far removed from what people do think as a western that I guess it's kind of the thing that makes it stand out the most. It makes use of the setting in a very unique way. Super well drawn, super fun to read. One of my favorite manga series of all time. I'm not like the hugest, the biggest fan of JoJo, but Steel Ball Run has a special place in my heart. I also really like Battle Tendency. I don't know, like they are completely different in so many ways, but they just scratch the itch. And yeah, so I guess this is kind of my point here. Red Dead Redemption 2 is like one of the best westerns of all time. And sorry, what was I going to say here?